Welcome back to Build, Grow, Exit, a Prospera Ventures series. We had so much great insight to share with you in part one. We decided to split this Q&A session in two so that we could keep it short and concise for you. So, welcome to part two with Bianca and Spencer. I'm not here to take up more time, so without further ado, let's jump in. Next question here is, how do you move past a major mistake or failure without letting it completely define you and your business?
Pretend it didn't happen. Yeah, for me, and I don't want to steal your thunder on this because I think you might have been going down a similar path, but for me, the only way to deal with a mistake or a failure, or quite frankly, something that went wrong, even if it isn't your fault, is to own it and face it head on and be very vocal about it. For me personally, this is something that hits very close to home because there's a lot about, where I started off my journey that is not necessarily the most fun thing to talk about or to admit, the mistakes or the early path that I took in life, but it's a huge part of what's made me who I am, and it's something that I have to own and just get out in front of, and it is what it is, right? And if somebody wants to hate you or disown you or your business because you made a mistake or because you went down the wrong path, but you owned it and you did everything you could to make it right and, literally make it right in the moment, but also learn and grow from it, and you communicated that to everybody, then quite frankly, you don't want them as a customer or somebody in your life anyways. And that can be really hard to deal with emotionally.
In the moment, yeah.
It can, because
no one likes to make a mistake or fail at something.
Nobody likes to not be liked.
And nobody likes to be liked, yeah. So the first part of the battle is just like owning it and being like, holy crap, my bad, I messed up, and then for me, it's like trying to figure out either how to fix it or how to adjust or how to do it differently next time, right? What can you put in place from keeping a screw up from happening again?
Yeah. Can you think of an example, a business example?
I think I've had quite a few, not knowing what I was doing, at least from an operations side of it, right? It literally can be as simple as me putting in an order and us not being able to use that order, partially because maybe my numbers were wrong, I miscalculated, and we can't just throw it away necessarily. But then what happens, right? 8, 9, 10, like what's the shelf life of the product? Now I got to either sell it on pennies of the dollar. We're going backwards. That's probably one of my biggest mistakes that I had done in not knowing what I was doing or how I was calculating certain inventory items with production. And then there's also like sometimes things just happen, right? Someone decides to be a customer that pulls out and now all of the inventory is left there. Okay, well, did we have something in the contract that said that they would be,
Shots fired.
So I'm just saying, like, there's been quite a few, especially being in the food world, right? There's just so much to touch base, and it sucked having to be like, hey, I ordered X $100,000 worth of product and I messed up, we can't use it, or I ordered too much, or even sometimes the transportation company, right? We froze your product. And that's why we have insurance. That's why there are certain things out there, but it sucks to have to be the one that says, I have a problem and I need fixing. But I will say, the sooner I spoke up, the better and easier it was to pivot and try and figure out that solution. 100%. If you own it, there's less likely for there to be repercussions after the fact.
100%. And a little bit of context for folks if they don't know, Bianca and I were very, very focused on the operations and supply chain side of building one of our last startups, Good Planet Foods. And so, it was up to us to make sure, well, it was up to me to make sure that we had good contracts in place with our suppliers or our co-manufacturers across the board, and that they protected us. And it was Bianca's responsibility to make sure that we had the right amount of inventory in place. And we had a super, super convoluted and complicated supply chain, just kind of by the nature of how cheese is made in this country. You can't necessarily expect to have all these different types of products under one roof. So we wound up with a very complicated supply chain that was hard to juggle sometimes. And yeah, it was unfortunately pretty easy to make a mistake, whether that was a mistake in calculation or a mistake in, for me specifically, just trying to get things in place so that we could make a product with a certain co-man as fast as possible and get it to market, but not taking the time to negotiate that contract and make sure that we had every single possible legal protection in place. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So sometimes ignorance was a problem. And once you find out that you were wrong in making the assumption that you could just move quickly and figure it out later, and that now, that assumption is costing you guys some money and maybe some time or relationships, whether that's on the customer side because you couldn't fulfill like you said you were going to, or on the vendor side because now you have to fight over money. There were so many different potholes that we could step into, and either knowingly or unknowingly, then the only way to handle it was up front to say, oh shit, I screwed up apparently, and this is what it is, let's figure it out. And even then, it's not always the most fun thing, but it's a heck of a lot better than trying to make an excuse or blame it on somebody else. That never works. But I will say, there are also a lot of things that happen that aren't your fault. That frozen container that you're talking about, I think, is a very good example. It was not our fault that happened. I think just genuinely, even with the benefit of hindsight being 2020, we navigated that really well in terms of I haven't been able to point to something where we dropped the ball here, and therefore our transportation company that we were utilizing did this. It was, no, they completely screwed it up and they did this. But you still have to navigate, and you have to do it in a way without burning a bridge with that supplier, and also with a customer who's negatively impacted. And the only way to handle it is to say, God, we screwed up, or our partner screwed up, not point fingers, and navigate it. We're all human beings. And I think at some level that connects with people regardless of what we're talking about in life. So,
Yeah.
Just saying like, God, I screwed up, or this happened.
I think
it connects with people, and that it gives you the ability to navigate moving forward, right?
Yeah, I think once you have that realization in life that everyone's human, as perfect as they may look and seem, people mess up, and you have that realization, and that's kind of how transparency became such a key value for us in our business, because we know it's going to happen, and I'd rather you just tell me versus trying to figure it out through some loophole of conversations or email or just too late to actually do anything about it. So
honestly, I will give our founder and partner in Good Planet, I'll give him some credit on that one, because anytime that I would come into a situation like that and be scared, like say it's with Whole Foods, right? I don't want to lose Whole Foods. They're our biggest customer.
I can't tell them the container froze.
Yeah, like I don't know what to do. And apparently he's learned that lesson a few times too, because it was always, you got to get ahead of it and tell it like it is. You can say the same thing a million different ways, so you can be thoughtful about how you're communicating it, but at the same time, it's really important to get out ahead of it, and that always proved true for me, and unfortunately, there were lots of opportunities to learn that lesson.
Next question. When you evaluate a potential acquisition, how much weight do you put on the founder's personality and their willingness to let go versus the business raw numbers? Has a difficult founder ever killed a perfect on-paper deal for you? Great question. Now, I will say I don't think we've even found a perfect deal on paper, so that is a little bit harder to navigate or answer.
There is no such thing as a perfect deal on paper. If it's perfect on paper, somebody's lying.
You've got skeletons.
Someone's lying. There is no such thing as a perfect deal on paper.
Yeah.
But you can have a good deal on paper, and you can have a good deal that, especially before you know about all those skeletons that you're talking about, that you really want.
Yeah.
And that it seems like the perfect one for you, and it's still a good business. So, I mean, first, just wanted to make sure that we addressed that misnomer that there is such thing as a perfect deal or a perfect company. There's not, but there are good ones, and there are ones that we thought were good for us.
Yeah.
With challenging people.
I will say, and I think we've talked about this before, people are the hardest part. And I think...
Is that how you frame it?
That's how I frame it. And if we can't get along with the owners, whether or not they're going through a transition period or just cutting ties and we're taking it as is, that would kill a deal easy, because unfortunately, I know there's stuff in their head that I want to know and understand, and there's no way that's going to happen if they're resisting of, and it's not even just about them letting go, it's just about them helping and supporting and caring enough about their business to be able to transfer some of that knowledge over to us. So personality is huge. I'm not saying they have to be sunshine at all. You can be grumpy, I don't care. Life deals us hands and we get a personality out of it, but I would like someone or someone's, if it's more than one owner, that is cares enough about their business and us taking over that they are willing to work through the process with us and just be clear and transparent with each other on what we want moving forward and how the deal and transition should look like.
I have two comments on that. The first is, not only is what you're talking about relevant for once you actually close,
Yeah.
and then navigating a transition period and a successful handoff, and like, so what the actual success of the business after we take over looks like.
Yeah.
But the probability of getting to the closing table goes way down if you can't see eye to eye with, with the owner, with the seller in the first place. I don't even think any more needs to be said there. If everything's going to be argumentative, if they have to be right about everything, if they have just a very toxic personality and have created a toxic culture, which is my next comment, then the chances of being able to get that business to the closing table are relatively low in the first place.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to butt heads after you close, chances are it's going to start before you close, especially when you're trying to negotiate money or terms, or people get sensitive about that kind of stuff. So yeah, and point number 2 is, what kind of a culture do you want to inherit with the business? And the owner is the one who has created that culture and continues to nurture it in a positive or negative way, right? I think for me, it's super important to be aligned with whatever that culture is. I'm not perfect and I'm not a saint for sure. So, a culture that I would create, is it perfect? No, but it has to be at least on par or in the same ballpark as a seller and their culture. And I figured if we get along, then they probably are creating a culture that's at least in the ballpark of what I can navigate with after close. The last thing you want is you to come in and essentially be yourself and create a culture that is completely different than what the owner had in place, because then you got to start over. People are going to leave. The people who are there can put up with the culture usually.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to that, but usually they're there and a part of the culture. So it's definitely important to make sure that you align well and can at least get along with a seller. And I would say that we've had one or two, one in particular that blew up. Thank God it did.
It was not perfect business. It was a decent business. I don't even think it was a good business. I want to go back really quick to the fact, building that relationship even before you close. I think this is also why it's really important for us, and it is important for us to try and meet owners where they're at and have those conversations together beforehand, and not to create anything towards brokers. But when we work with brokers, there is a lot of blocking to even try and build that relationship at the beginning. And so it does make it very hard to say and try and understand, what does the seller want? What do they value? How can we really meet them where they're at, if we can't actually meet them, whether it's virtual, in person. And so we gravitate towards trying to meet those owners at their locations, at conventions, at centers, at just natural, because it's so much easier to start building that relationship and understand and get that eye to eye understanding. But it's really hard when you're trying to contact and have questions and you just can't, because you're getting blocked by someone who's kind of in charge of that relationship, so to speak. So that is a challenge that we have if we are going that broker route. I will say we've had a few brokers that have been actually really great and amenable to us having conversations and cell phone calls and everything like that. Like, I think a few of the owners, whether or not we even actually buy their business, they've just become really good friends because we at least have the same kind of mindset and goals, and pick each other's brains with what we've done, and have just been really good people. Like, let's go have happy hour. Even those relationships are fun because there isn't necessarily an ulterior motive to, I want to buy your business, and if not, we can't be friends. I think that's how we've made friends, which is really cool.
And I would double down a little bit on I mean, this is a double-edged sword, just as with anything, but I would double down on the importance of meeting people in person post-COVID. But one thing that has, I think, been both a positive and a negative coming out of COVID is the proliferation of Zoom meetings and being able to connect with anybody on a screen, face to face.
Couch to couch.
Couch to couch, blurred background to blurred background, has become so easy and commonplace, which is a beautiful thing because it enables people to have more flexibility in life and to have a better work-life balance. And I know for us, that's definitely been important. It also enables a lot of businesses to have employees and members of the team who aren't in the same city. So location doesn't, create a huge barrier to somebody or a business being successful. And yet there is absolutely no replacing in-person connection. And I think for us, developing the relationship in person and taking the extra time and energy and expense to create those relationships, even if it doesn't result in us buying the business this time or right now, is something that I think is super beneficial. It kind of sets us apart from a lot of people because we care about the relationships, and that is a big part of what we are trying to do when we're buying somebody's business. We want a relationship with them, and we're definitely going to create a relationship with their business and their employees, after we take it over. So taking the time to go meet somebody makes all the difference in the world.
Well, we'll wrap it up here. Please comment or, just leave us a note every now and again. We'd love to hear some of the wins you're having with your business. I was going to say, just comment any other questions you guys might have or topics you may want to hear about in our feature series. But honestly, even if you have a win of the week, share a win. We'd love to celebrate with you when you're going through those milestones. If you decided to use our checklist and you're loving it and you're using it, please tell us. We love to celebrate wins with you, even if it is virtual, couch to couch, blurred screen to blurred screen. And really, no, I just want to make sure I didn't have anything else.
You want to talk about being human, I'm just saying. I love it.
Yeah, but that's all I've got for you.
All right. So let me just remind everybody how much of a difference it makes for us, how important it is for us. If you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Quite frankly, you don't have to hit that little bell if you really don't want the extra notifications. I know how much you have coming at you at any given moment in time, especially if you're a business owner. So we'll understand if you don't do that. But if you like and subscribe, it makes a huge, huge difference. Helps get this out to other people and, helps us build what we're trying to build here, which is really us helping you and everybody helping each other to be more successful. So I don't think it's a bad thing. Help us out.
Till next time.